Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Gilany Leadership Academy as we seek leaders from around the world to help us grow, to help the younger generation grow. Today, I have the pleasure and the honor of having Mr. Morris Lukowich, who has been playing in high-level hockey in North America, and he's going to be with us to answer some questions. Morris, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Arif. It's fantastic to be here.
My pleasure. And now we wanted to ask you some questions. Thanks for this introduction. Gary was gracious enough to invite me to his meeting where I met you, and there was an instant connection. I said, this man has got a world of knowledge. We need to dig in and see how we can bring all of this out and share it with the world. So I wanted to start with your story, sir. When we talked earlier, and you said that your dream of becoming a high-level hockey player started when you were 5 or 6. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into playing high-level hockey, please?
Okay. So I came from the middle of basically nowhere, Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan's a province in Canada. It's right in the middle of the wheat belt. And I grew up in a little town of about 150 people. It was called Spears. It's located north of Saskatoon, about an hour east of North Battleford, about 30 minutes and south of Prince Albert. So it's right in the middle of the wheat belt. Good farming land. My dad was a wheat farmer, and so like the fact is, I have a talk. I call it "Dreams Can Come True and Miracles Can Happen." And the fact that I actually became a professional hockey player is somewhat of a miracle. I coach that to young players because the little town I grew up in, we did not even have an indoor hockey rink. So I played my very first hockey on an outdoor hockey rink. And actually in the little town we lived in, the streets were so icy that we would put on our skates at home. We would skate down the streets. It was about 3 blocks to the rink. And so I'd skate down the streets to the rink and then go on the ice and play. And when we had to warm up, there was a little shack. We'd come in and there was a wood burning stove. And so we'd warm up there. And next door was actually the curling rink. And it was the only enclosed ice surface. And we had 2 sheets of ice. And my brother Ed and Mike curled, and so did I. I'm a very good curler. And I actually had the Winnipeg Jets curling for a little while. There's another story there. But it ended up that my brother Ed Lukowich, he actually ended up, and he was my coach and mentor. He ended up becoming world curling champion in 1986. So he was such an influence in my life. So middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan. I played my minor hockey in it ended up in a little town called Hafford. Which did have an indoor rink. It was 9 miles down the road. And so we would drive. There was kind of a little story here so I got into organized hockey when I was about 9 years old. But I remember there was a discussion around the kitchen table about whether to let my brother Leonard, who was 3 years older than me, and myself actually play hockey. And I remember my mom said she didn't like the idea. And so my mom was there, my dad was there, my brother Mike and Ed were there, my brother Leonard, and it ended up she didn't like the idea. And my brother Ed said, "How come?" And she said she thought that it would teach us a lack of discipline. Which, and I remember it just froze. Everybody. We call pregnant pauses, and everybody was quiet. And then it ended up my brother Mike said, "You know what, Mom, if anything, it will probably teach them discipline." And then she said, "Well, okay." Like there was a moment there. I thought we weren't going to get to play. And she said, "Well, okay, we'll test it out. But if they end up being, if this turns them into little brats, then we're going to cancel it." So it was a crucial meeting that was held around their kitchen table. And it was decided that we would be allowed to play hockey. And then that was very, very cool because then I got to play indoors And being on the farm, I got to play not only at my level, I got to play at the level above and the level above. So I got tons of hockey. I was playing all the time. And that also contributed to my growth. At the age of 11, though, we moved from the little town of Spears to Saskatoon, which was such a huge move in my hockey life. Because then when I got to Saskatoon, it's a city of about 100,000 at that time. I fell into basically what was an all-star system of hockey, where I got good coaching, tons of ice time, and I was really able to develop my game there. From there, I ended up playing junior hockey in Medicine Hat. There's a cool story how my life changed in one day. I got a phone call from one of my teammates, Neil, and said, "Hey, if we want to play junior hockey next year, we've got to go to Medicine Hat." I was 17 years old, and I said, "Medicine Hat? I don't want to go to Medicine Hat." And he said, "Well, they've got our rights." And so, he said, "You want the car leaves tomorrow at 4:00 in the afternoon. Talk it over with your mom and dad and see what you think." And it ended up, so we had this conversation, and I was already in grade 12 in high school in Saskatoon. And it ended up, my brother Ed said, and he was such a good coach, good mentor to me. He said, "You know what, Morris, if you have this dream of being an NHL hockey player, it looks like this is the next step." And I talk about the next step so often. And ended up, the next step was that I got into that car at 4:00 in the afternoon on a Friday, and we drove. There was 4 of us. There was Neil Park, Kirk Walters, a dope smoking goaltender by the name of Ron Thiessen, and we drove, and we ended up and literally ended up. We went down to Medicine Hat, and I made the team, and literally my life changed in one phone call in that one trip.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. That was a great introduction. In average family, would you say? Average family in North Saskatoon or wherever you were, just a regular Canadian?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, my dad was a hardworking farmer. My mom, we had boarders, so she worked hard all the time. She always grew a beautiful garden in the backyard. And I was lucky. I came into a family that loves sports. So my brother Mike and Ed, they curled, they golfed. They didn't really play much hockey. They never got the opportunity to play hockey. It ended up that my brother Leonard and I got that opportunity. And but so we played football, tennis, baseball, golf, hockey. Like we just were badminton. We played sports all the time.
You may have come from a family that was prone to sports, but you put a lot of discipline in. Am I correct to get there? Sacrifices you made along the way, moving from one place to another, just to be exposed to let's say, better coaching, better mentorship in hockey. What are some of the lessons that you learned, that sacrifices that you had to make to really make this happen?
Well, even at the age of 8, my brother Ed ended up giving me a book called The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And I read the book. And so at a very young age, I took on an attitude of positiveness, that it's just like the little train that said, I believe. So I was very much, I can do it. I can. I really had a belief that I can do it. And so that belief came in big time, because the training that went into hockey, it was extremely tough. And I talk about giving 110%. And some people say, well, how's that possible? And yet giving 110% is what got me into the being a professional player in the NHL. And like people say, well, how's that possible? There's only 100% that can be given. Well, I would disagree. There's an extra 10%. And so that 10% was being out on the ice in cold weather, out there practicing. One of our coaches in Pee Wee would take us out to an Olympic oval speed skating, and in order for us to practice our skating. And so in temperature where it was just freezing, we would be out there skating laps, improving our endurance and improving our skating skills. And so that was a piece. At times after a practice, I would take a hockey net, and I would push it up and down the ice in order to develop strength in my legs. I'd even put a player on that would sit on top of the net, and then I would push that while my teammate would be laughing away at how I'm pushing the net. After practice, I would put on a weight belt and I would go run the steps in the arena in order to develop strength in my legs. So when the thing is, I never really saw it as sacrifice though, because I loved the sport so much and I had this dream. So for me, it wasn't so much about sacrifice. It was just about what was required in order to achieve my dream.
Wow.
Hey, Morris, I'd like to ask you a question, Gary here. So,
Yeah.
When do you recall was the birthing of this dream? I remember something about you're on your father's lap. Can you share that moment and how did that unfold for you, please?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. This was as I reflect back, where did this dream of being an NHLer come from? And I feel it went back to all the way when I was about 5 years old. And on Saturday nights, we would watch Hockey Night in Canada together as a family. And I would sit on my dad's lap on his left side, on his heart side, and my brother Len would be sitting on the other side. And we would be watching Hockey Night in Canada. What's kind of cool, Gary, is that at that time, we watched it on black and white TV. And like I said, I'm unsure why this was ever called black and white, because it's mostly gray TV. And we actually, in Western Canada, we didn't get the full hockey game. We only got the second and third periods. So Foster Hewitt would come on TV and he would be talking about what happened in the first period. He would give a recap, and then he would typically interview somebody. And he might interview one of the players. And the thing is during that time when I was sitting on my dad's lap and I would listen to the interviews done by Foster Hewitt, I also got that my dad had a tremendous respect for some of these players, such as Gordie Howe and Bobby Hull, Dave Keon, Henri Richard. And there was a thought that came into my head that, wow, if I could be one of those guys on TV, that it would really make my dad happy and it would make him proud of me. And so I believe that was the initial thought, was of becoming an NHLer in order to make my dad happy.
So the birth of a dream happened on your father's lap, you say. Just the love of family is really important in pursuing your passions, and seems like you had that from your dad, from your mom, and the example of really hard work and discipline and sacrifice.
Yes, and so for myself, there was this dream for myself to get to the NHL, and yet I feel what made it even more powerful is that I was doing this also for my father. And so that extra 10%, when I was feeling a little bit tired and maybe didn't want to stay out on the ice to shoot pucks for an extra 20 minutes, there was something there that got me out there to shoot those. And I think it was because I truly, I had this keenness to get to the NHL, because it would make not only myself happy, but it would really make my dad happy.
So your dream and your family's dream, your dad's dream were aligned. This rarely happens, because sometimes it's our parents who want us to do something, and then ourselves, we might be directed to another direction. So this is really a great alignment into getting you what you want, but you sacrificed along the way. So tell us a little bit about how in, playing hockey, you had to move from city to city, and perhaps on the weekends. How do you balance life, family life, your professional life while you were playing? You have a family of your own, I know, and it's tough to be away for a long time. This all sacrifice it takes, right? How do you balance that? How do you spend time with your family? What do they think about you being away?
Well, it ended up that when I actually left Saskatoon when I was 17 and moved to Medicine Hat, I got very lucky, because when I made the team, I was given billets to stay with, and it was Jim and Diane Triber. And they were almost like a new set of parents for me. And they just welcomed us in. Actually, I'm in Jim's home right now in Medicine Hat. And we were talking about hockey this morning. We were talking about life this morning. And So I was very lucky that way. I do remember that very first Christmas, though, that I wanted to get back to Saskatoon so bad. And it ended up that one of the other teammates, Cliff Bast, and we drove back to Saskatoon, spent time with my parents. And I missed Saskatoon. The interesting thing was, though, when we were on our way back to Medicine Hat, I knew that that homesickness was gone. And I knew that my path was in Medicine Hat, and it was to get down there and that was the path for me to success. That first Christmas, though, I sure missed home. Otherwise, also in pro, it ended up that I got married to a girl that I met in junior hockey. Her name is Eva. She's from Medicine Hat. And I mean, there's a lot of time spent away. So we spent a lot of time on the phone chatting. And as a matter of fact, in my first year, when I went to the Houston Aeros in the World Hockey Association, I wrote Eva a letter every day. And yes, so she laughs. We talk about it sometimes about how she would go to the post office on a Monday, and there would be like 4 or 5 letters there from me because I wrote it and sent one every day. So there was a missingness there that, I mean, I wanted to share with her, even though we weren't together in Houston.
Wonderful. So communicating, staying in touch, and you went above and beyond. You seem like have this habit of going the extra mile, what we call is, even writing letters every day to your lovely wife. You made some sacrifices, but the outcomes were amazing. Those days, I believe people really played for their passion like you did. Today, the monies are humongous, can't even be compared. But that passion got you going, get you to NHL. So tell us, what's the best advice for some aspiring young people now? The money is there. If you make it to NHL, you probably first year be a millionaire automatically. But what other advice do you have to really just follow the passion, not just the money? Because I believe you did for your passion, for your father passion, for your passion that was lined up, right?
Well, there's a love of the game. Now, the thing is, I did want to become a professional hockey player also, because we were professional hockey players at the time. We're starting to get paid some pretty good money, with the WHA having come along in 1972, with Bobby Orr was one of the very first players to ever have an agent by the name of Alan Eagleson, who negotiated the best contract for him at the time, and I believe about 1967. So there was some pretty good money that was coming into the sport. So the thing is, though,
let me ask you this question, if you don't mind.
I really feel it was just love of the game so much.
You also had the love for the game, but you also had some really close mentorship. You mentioned Ed Lukowich, your brother, who was let's say, a really hands-on and right in your home to coach you, to train you, to inspire you. How important is the role of coaches in our lives?
Well, it's a huge piece, because there are some players, and it's sad that I've talked with some young players who have left hockey. And when we talk about it, how come? Because they had a bad coach. Yeah. So I really feel, and there's various type of coaching. There's coaching which is called alpha male coaching. It's a very easy style of coaching, where that type of coach is just quite a negative person, and he will actually dump on the players lots. And the players quite often will win in this way, because they will, as long as their ego is strong enough, they will play up through this. But it's almost like a hate of the coach, and they want to win just to prove that the coach was wrong, that everything he was saying negative, he was wrong. And then there's an alpha leader, and that's what I aspire to be. That coach, he's at the bottom of the pyramid, lifting the players up, doing whatever he can to have the players be their very, very best. And instead of doing it through negativity, he does it through positive through a foundation of building up a player so that they can be their very best. And the first way, the alpha male, it can win a Stanley Cup. The alpha leader, it can become a dynasty.
Wow. So this was so special. You mentioned types of this different styles of coaching, really getting people to move from where they are to where they want to go. That's why we put this program together, this leadership program where Gary's coming in, where Leon, Mario, everybody's coming in to pitch in to help them give the younger people, in this case, immigrants, maybe a little insight into what it takes to win in Canada in all areas of life. Let me ask you this. Teamwork is something that is very important in hockey, especially. What have you learned and what can you tell us about teamwork in that environment, being 20, 30 years of really in a team session? How important is to be a part of a team?
Okay. There's actually one thing, a piece of the team is the coach. And with my brother, Ed, who was my mentor, one thing I'd like to say about that is what was so important with him is that he often, as he was watching the game, because he relocated to Medicine Hat after in my second year, and I was in Medicine Hat 3 years, and he became a teacher there, and he was a curler, but he spent lots of time watching my game. So he was a set of eyes that could see things that I was perhaps missing. And so, like a quick story on that before I get into teamwork is that he started to notice I used to shoot the puck all the time off my right foot. So I'd always take the puck and I would transfer through to my right. I was left-handed shot, transfer through. And he one time said to me, you know what, I've noticed that some of the other players are actually shooting off their, what we called at the time, the wrong foot, and that the shot looked quicker. So it ended up that time with this mentoring, we actually went out on an open rink at around midnight when the moon was shining. So we actually did this practice, this coaching by moonlight. And it ended up, he showed me what was to be done, and I was unable to do it. I had shot the puck transferring through to my right leg so many times. And he said, and I remember he said to me, you know what, Morris, trust me on this. It appears that guys that sometimes shoot off the wrong leg, for me, it would be my left leg, which is with the way Mark Messier shot so often, is that the puck gets away a little quicker and it's a little bit deceptive. And so he said, trust me, keep doing it. And so I kept attempting, and I was making a turn coming up and I was attempting to shoot. And then all of a sudden it worked. It clicked. And it was almost like my brain was building new neural paths to have this happen. And then, wow, I went, that was cool. And I started to do it. It ended up that overall in my hockey career, I basically shot the puck more off my left leg than I did my right leg. So, but what the key there was the trust that I had in him to keep going, because I was ready to quit on it. And yet, because I had a respect for him, I had a trust for him. I mean, that piece was so important. Then on the teamwork side, wow. I mean, I got to play my success is so much based in playing with fantastic players. In junior, I got to play with Donnie Murdoch. His name was Donnie Murdoch because the guy was such an incredible goal scorer. There's only two guys ever that have scored 5 goals in the NHL in one game as a rookie. There's him and Howie Meeker in 1948. Donnie did it in 76. Greg Carroll, the guy was an amazing passer. And then when I got to pro, I got to play with Terry Wiskowski, Rich Preston, Kent Nielsen, who at the time was the most talented player in the world next to Wayne Gretzky. So to be able to play and to be able to set up timing, to know where each other are without even looking, I mean, that's so much of what teamwork is. And then also teamwork for me, because it was such a rough game at the time. Big guys would attempt to run me over. I was very good at retaliating. I slashed a lot of big guys in my career. And then I had teammates that came in and saved me when these big guys were just going to beat the crap out of me. I had teammates who stepped in and quite often would fight a fight for me.
So when you enter, let's say, a team sports or team environment, and you see other players who are doing better or playing better, raises your level of play. And similarly, I believe in business, in all walks of life, when we have other people we aspire to be like. So some of the influences were internal in your own family, others were external, people that you perhaps didn't know before you started hockey, and you became friends with them. How important is building relationships along the way? You are sitting right now in the home of one of your friends that you met when you were 17, would you say?
Yes, he was Jim Triber. He was our billet, Jim and Diane. It's interesting what you said, though, about playing up a level. That's not only as a team, but that's what I love playing against the Edmonton Oilers. Because at that time, like the Edmonton Oilers of the early 80s were, I believe, the best hockey team of all time. And they had Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Glenn Anderson, Kevin Lowe, Paul Coffey, Grant Fuhr in goal. When we played against them, our level had to come up another level. We had to be better in order to have an opportunity to beat them. So that was one thing that I really loved in that situation. It was actually by playing against such an amazing team, it raised our level to new levels.
Wow, this is also, you mentioned something that caught my ear, which is with synergy. Sometimes you move to a place where you had a feeling that your teammate is there. This is a synergy between business, or any sports teams, business teams, and all kinds of teams. When you understand each other, you build this relationship with your teammates that you don't really need to verbalize everything. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And like for myself as a player, I was small, I was extremely fast, and I was pretty good when I had the puck. Yet I feel I was better when I didn't have the puck. Because in hockey, when a player can get to the side of the net, then all that has to happen is for the puck to show up. And then quite often that player can bury it into a wide open net. And I was really good without the puck because I could get to that spot. Yet what happened was my teammates, they had to hang on to that puck long enough and then be smart enough to get that puck over to that spot. And so where I was showing up and the puck was showing up and it was perfectly timed, where then I could bury it into the wide open net. And Kent Nielsen, I think, was possibly the best I've ever seen at that I ever played with. I never got to play with Wayne Gretzky. He was probably a little bit better. Yet that timing where one player could hold on to the puck, the other player get open, and then get that puck over to him so the goal could be scored. And it's it's clockwork. It truly is.
Wow, what a great insight, Morris, sir. This is amazing. I wanted to ask you something that about routines, disciplines that you have and you developed along the way. What does it really take, your daily routines? What's your daily routine? Let's go back when you were playing actively.
Well, one is
routines, morning routines, waking up, sleeping, all of the personal things that you had to really put in place to be able to play at such level.
You know what, I would say that right off the bat, when I would wake up in the morning, I just got into a place of gratitude for the opportunity to actually be able to play. Like I'm big on our connection with whatever our higher power is. And I almost believe that was a bit of my demise, that when I started to score a lot of goals and whatever, I perhaps forgot to give that gratitude first thing in the morning and last thing at night. So I feel gratitude is so important to success. Otherwise, the ego takes over, and that's a license for sabotage. The discipline, though, it's important to be able to eat right, to drink the correct fluids, to get the correct amount of sleep, and so the player is ready to go 100%. One thing I will say, the little extra 10% I would give is typically when we would practice, or when, like, for example, when we would play a game, and so the game was exhausting, and yet after the game was finished, I would walk, after I would get undressed, I'd walk over to our weight room, and I would go and I would skip for 20 minutes. Like, I was able to do 150 skips a minute and I would do 20 minutes of skip, and I would do 3,000 skips in order to maintain my aerobic endurance. And then I would go and I would do about 15 minutes of strength training in order to maintain my strength. So here, after an exhausting hockey game where it was time for a beer, I would actually go into that room and I would put in an additional 40 minutes of work in order to be the best that I could be.
You have been going the extra mile. You always did a little bit above and beyond, and this is really important to win anywhere in life. And you have exemplified that. I wanted to ask you, Gary, right now even today, you are a learner. You never stop learning, you never stop practicing. And how we met was through Gary, and you taken the course with Gary and finding out what else is still possible for you. Well, how important is continuous learning? You said the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, that's what it started out, studying this gratitude, and then really continues to grow, continuing to grow throughout life. And you still are doing that, sir. That's a very honorable thing to say. So tell us about growth along the way. You keep growing, you keep learning, keep participating, taking courses. You still are doing that. Am I correct?
Yes, I love doing various courses. One of my mentors, a man by the name of Howard Lagarde, who was out of Santa Rosa, California, he taught about the ting behind the ting. And so often we're at a spot that is perhaps disempowering in our life, and we're actually not able to see what the solution is. It's the ting behind the ting, like what's really going on. What's the reason for our self-sabotage or for this not working out? So I have learned from him is to be open to see a new possibility where then things can be better, where they can be more empowered. And so not only to look for that in myself, but for me to be able to look for that in others. Every day I read from a book called A Course in Miracles, which I believe is like a gift that was given to me by my higher power. Just recently, I just set down a book called The Untethered Soul, which I believe will help empower my life. It's a beautiful book. Actually, I'm right in the middle of reading Gary's book, and the various stories he has, where he interviewed various Canadians. So yes, I always, like for myself, it's always be ready for that next little nugget, for that next little piece that is going to make our lives, one, more enjoyable, give us the opportunity to actually truly enjoy happiness, and then also for us to achieve the success levels that we truly deserve.
Wow. One thing I've learned, sir, is knowing is the enemy of learning. When we think we know things, we shut the door on learning, and you're so open still at this time in your life, still learning, still growing right now, reading Gary's book. And I want to ask Gary to jump in here to tell us a little about the purpose coaching, which is really the foundation for all things that we're doing here together as a team. Because if we don't know our purpose, it's hard to focus on financial services, on sales, or any other career. But once you know. So Gary, jump in here and tell us about the course that you did with Morris and how we got to this point, please.
Yes, thanks, Arif. I just want to ask everyone a question to start off with. Most people on the planet believe in a creator. And so if it's true that the creator, let's say God, created everything, do you believe that everything in creation has a purpose, that God created it for a purpose? Who would concur? Who would agree with that? Okay, great. And so that means you and I as well. Yes, you and I have been created with and for a purpose. And so that's my belief, certainly, as I help people discover their purpose, their God-given purpose, so they can show up and use their gifts and their talents to serve this hurting world, and to be the most fulfilled and highest performing and have the greatest impact with their life. And I'm thinking most of us probably, you know, we're all going to take our last breath one day, right? We're all going to be on our deathbed, unfortunately. And I believe we're going to be in one of two places, either in a place of regret because we did not do everything we possibly could, or we didn't know what our purpose was. And, you know, and so we haven't fulfilled the purpose for our life. And the other option is that you're going to be a place of fulfillment and that you did know and do everything you possibly could to fulfill the purpose for your life. So that's part of my calling. And as we help people, and as Arif and I are working together to share this information to help people grow in their lives, but certainly by getting clarity. So we're talking about getting clarity, confidence, and commitment on their purpose, their calling, you know, their mission, their destiny, and so on. So Morris, if I was to ask you a question, is there something specific, you don't have to share it necessarily, that you want to accomplish with your life as much as you've already accomplished before you take your last breath? How would you respond to that question?
You know what, Gary? I have not yet won a Stanley Cup. I won a World Hockey Association championship in 1975 in the World Hockey. We won the Avco Cup. And then I actually came very, very close to winning 2 Stanley Cups because the Edmonton Oilers wanted to trade Laurie Boschman. And it ended up there was a conversation between Glenn Sather and our general manager, John Ferguson. And I almost got traded that day for Laurie Boschman. It ended up that it didn't work out. And then we sent Willie Lindstrom there, and Willie won 2 Stanley Cups. So I came that close. Yet I've looked at that. I would love to help people. First of all, I'd love to win a Stanley Cup. So I've put that out into the universe. I've asked if, like, Lord, if it's thy will, then please, you know, show me the way or have it happen. And just like I did as a young boy, before I'd say my prayers at nighttime, it was, Lord, please let me play with Gordie Howe. And while you're at it, will you throw in Bobby Hull? I got to do both. And yet, so now I've been also, is it possible for me to help people win the Stanley Cup in whatever area it is in their life, so that they can get to that spot where they get to win that Stanley Cup, whatever it is, and they get to raise that up and they get to enjoy that moment of celebration.
Wow.
And,
Go ahead,
and I would imagine, Morris, that could be just as fulfilling for you, even maybe more so, to help others win their Stanley Cup and coach and serve and mentor them as well.
Yes. You know, there's a few young players that I've worked with that are in the NHL now, and it's very cool to see them. But also one really cool piece was that during COVID, I was hitting some golf balls out on a baseball diamond all by myself. And this guy came riding by on a bike, and he stopped and he came back and he came over and he introduced himself. And he said, "What, my son did your camps as a boy. And I want to say thank you for everything you did for me." I said, "Oh, cool. Where's he now?" He said, "Well, he's playing with the Colorado Avalanche. He's in the NHL." And I went, "Wow, that is cool." Yet for that dad to stop and to come back and to express gratitude and to say really a heartfelt thanks for the piece that I contributed in him getting there, that was beautiful. I loved it.
The best piece of happiness we get is really through helping other people. That's why this team is here. That's what we're all doing. Gary, I think you have a very big mission, Gary, and I appreciate it. So jump in, and this purpose to me is really big. And I think to Morris is big. Now he's finding his purpose through helping other people. So if we help enough other people get what they want, we will get what we want. Am I correct? And how are you helping us get what we want, Gary?
Yeah, and you know, it's probably the best way to live your life, right? When you're on purpose. In fact, if you would, everyone, just for a moment, just to close your eyes just for a moment, and just recall a time or the last time when you were excited, you were maybe serving someone, or you were just following your heart and you just felt on top of the world, you felt unstoppable, whatever that was, whatever you were doing, just recall that for a moment, that place, that state that you were in, and the emotions that you felt. It's probably bringing a smile to your face as it is mine. And we can live our life in like that, like most days, as you open your eyes again. And so that's the power, right? When we discover our greatest passion, which I believe is our current purpose, we can live that way. We can live in fulfillment and grace and service, and like we're on top of the world. And we can serve others and make a positive difference with our lives. So that's what we're doing. And if you would like to learn more about just having a conversation with me, then I'll put in the chat my contact info. And I know most of us are continuous learners. I mean, Morris went through our step 1 and step 2 of the Purpose Masterclass program. Now he's enrolled in the next one we're starting, which is the full length, the full process, Living on Purpose workshop series. So even someone like Morris, right, who's well matured in his life and continuous learner, has a desire to get the next level of clarity, to have the next level of impact in his life. So we invite you to have a conversation and see how we can be of service to you to get more clarity, confidence, commitment on your God-given purpose as well.
Thank you, sir. We're looking forward to filling up that class. And I wanted to come out to the rest of our team here. I know Mario's played hockey himself. Mario, jump in here. Your gift is in sales. You are a passionate people person. Do you have any questions for Morris? Any comments? Tell us what we're doing here. Unmute yourself. You are muted if you... No. So, no, there's a button there. You can unmute yourself, but if you're looking for it, let me go to Leon. Leon, you're ready. You're sitting at your desktop. Tell us what have you learned today from Morris, and if you have any questions for him, please unmute yourself.
Okay, I just want to say it's a great presentation. I admire the tenacity of Morris, and I think it's something that it's needed, especially since we are here to help others and things like that. And myself included, the only way to actually be able to help someone fully is to be able to be there yourself, I think. I think like once we go through the same process, then you're more likely to be able to know what it's like to be in that person's shoes, right? So in my line of business too, financial services, that is, I was also in a similar position of where I needed help because, for example, I ran into some financial issues of my own and I needed to come out of it. The only way to come out of it was to find people who can know better than me, who were better at planning. And that's how I was able to get out of it. And since then, I just became passionate about helping people to become financially independent and leave a legacy for their family, because I think it's a gift that keeps on giving, right? So I know what it's like. I'm a compassionate person because of that too. And I think that's one of the biggest superpowers that we should have, is to be compassionate, because the only way we can help someone is to know what it's like, and to put ourselves where the other person is. So I learned a lot from Morris. Morris, you have a lot of resilience and a lifelong learner like myself, because I believe like we have to keep on learning. We're never too old to learn anything. If we close our minds, it's the devil's playground. That's what I was taught to. So very
Wonderful.
good, very good. Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Thank you, Leon.
Not a problem.
Wonderful. And Leon is going to be teaching our immigrant entrepreneurs about financial services, which is right now, I know the statistic is really tough. I mean, we're talking about Morris, who's a NHL player, achiever, financially may not be as desperate as most Canadians, but cost of groceries, cost of everything is going up, and really learning about the business of money is really important and essential. And also, Mario in some of the things that he does to teach. Next week, Mario and I have 1 week of sales training. We're going to be recording some of that. Mario, tell us about yourself and your services, your talents, your gifts. Fire away.
Yes, how you doing, my friends? I'm hats off, but I'm glad you guys, coaching is an important thing in life. I'm in sales for the last 40 years, and basically I went through trade shows and home shows and had my own scene on TV stores. And motivation is a good thing, and coaching is another. So somebody that knows or guides you in the right direction, that's most important, and that's what we need, just like yourself and the gentleman and everybody else on the line here.
Thank you so much. Morris, sir, getting back to you, and I have some other guests which probably are joining overseas, just enjoying the conversation. What's the best piece of advice simply you can give a younger person? Maybe as aspiring NHL player, or they're like the guy that you said, or what can you tell us, me and Leon, who are juniors here?
Well, you know what, there's a couple of things. One, it's interesting how Mario mentioned motivation. From what I've seen, there's motivation is something that's external, that comes into us, that helps us get moving. And yet, even stronger than motivation is inspiration. That's where we connect within. And then that will drive us. So there's the external, the internal. And that internal inspiration, that love of the game, let's say the love of the sale, the love of getting the win, actually learning to love the loss so that we can learn and be better. So I would say be open to the external motivation from coaching, mentoring, and yet also go within, connect with whatever this higher power is, and then be inspired to move forward. And then often we're not on our own. We're doing it together. And it's kind of interesting, in the word together is to get there. Right. So to do it together. A second piece is that there is talent, and then there is desire. I've played with players who God reached down, and when he touched them, he said, you are going to be incredibly talented, and you will have gifts that other players have not got. And I've played with some players who have just had such incredible talent. They have had such an amazing skating skills, amazing shooting skills, amazing deception. And they have taken their game to an incredible high level. They're also the players, though, that have not been given as much talent, yet they've been given a huge heart. And that is something often that a scout is not able to see, is the size of that heart inside of a player. The willingness that that player has to give that extra 10%, that 110%, or to go that extra mile. That desire can take a player to amazing heights. Also, when we get a mix of talent and desire, we get a Wayne Gretzky. It's that simple.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us the time today. It's been a wonderful. I'm going to make sure that I watch this interview again. So many nuggets. I just learned something really interesting here. Together means to get there. It had never crossed my ears. So thank you for that wonderful nugget. So we're trying to get there together to get as many people with us. And I'm inviting you also into our coaching session. We're going to talk about the future of this program. I believe there's tremendous need for the advice of this team right here out there. So thank you so much, sir, for sharing. Gary, you want to close us out? Any last minute advice you want to give us? You're our spiritual leader, sir.
Well, I would say just keep following your heart, whatever that is for each of us. And as I love the way Morris put that, the inspiration, that's the internal, the intrinsic internal motivation or inspiration, which is the most powerful. So, follow your heart to where that's going to take you to be in service and to be on purpose, and just to offer a blessing for each person, just a blessing that God, the creator of the universe, would bless you, would keep you, would guide you, would continue to inspire you to know and to act upon your purpose and make a difference in the world. So bless each one, I pray. Amen.
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 Thank you very much, Joman. Thank you, Morris. Any last thing, or thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We're going to connect later on offline, and look forward to further collaboration using all of this knowledge and wisdom that you have. Thank you for giving us your time.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
Morris.
day, everyone. Thank you very
God bless
much.
you. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
God bless.
All the best.